Theta iscjeljivanje je model energetskog iscjeljivanja kojeg se ponekad opisuje kao meditativni proces usmjeren ka fizičkom, psihološkom i duhovnom iscjeljenju. Ime je dobio po Theta valovima. Kad se ti valovi pojave u mozgu, on zapada u Theta stanje, a to je stanje vrlo duboke relaksacije koje se koristi u hipnozi, ali i u snu. Moždani valovi tada se uspore na 4 do 7 Hz. Stoga se o Theta valovima može govoriti i kao o podsvijesti. Oni su vladari onog dijela našeg uma koji se nalazi između svjesnog i nesvjesnog. Sadrže uspomene i osjećaje, a također vladaju našim stavovima, vjerovanjima i ponašanjima. Povezuje ih se i sa nadahnutošću i kreativnošću. Dakle, vrlo važna frekvencija. Od Theta valova do Theta iscjeljivanja prva je stigla Vianna Stibal, Amerikanka koja je osmislila i oblikovala taj proces prije više od 20 godina. Pa je kucnuo trenutak da se sretnemo i ovdje, na Rubu Znanosti. Sve vas pozdravljam. Vianna Stibal, osnivačica Theta iscjeljivanja, koja je u Hrvatskoj dosta prisutno već niz godina, također i autorica nekoliko knjiga na tu temu, od kojih jednu imamo i u studiju i na temelju nećemo večeras i razgovarati. Dobro večer.
Hello.
Što je to Theta healing? Zbog čega se tako zove i s čime ima veze?
Well, we call it theta healing because we believe that we are accessing a theta brainwave, which is a dream brainwave, and it's actually called theta. And I named the technique theta healing after the Greek letter, which means beginning and end, soul, but mostly because of the brainwave that we believe that we're accessing. I think that it's incredible that we can actually measure what's actually happening in our healings, so we call it theta healing.
Možete li nam malo podsjetiti nas koje vrste valova u mozgu postoje, koje svrhe imaju, namjene?
Well, you know, technically, I think in the book we actually talk about the 4 main waves, but really there's 5 brain waves. We're talking right now, we're in beta. That doesn't mean that the other brain waves are not working, but that we are mostly using a beta brain wave because we're talking, we're listening, we're reacting. The second brainwave that we really talk about in the book is an alpha brainwave, which is the brainwave that you visualize in. So when you imagine walking along the seashore, that's going to take you to an alpha brainwave. And this is the brainwave that a lot of people meditate in. But after they've practiced meditating for a long time, they start to get even deeper into what we would call a theta brainwave. Theta brainwaves are the same brainwave that you have when you dream. When you first go to sleep and start dreaming, that's a theta brainwave. It's also the brainwave that some of the children play video games in. Your brain will slip into a theta brainwave sometimes when you're driving. You get kind of that feeling of kind of zone out. It's also the brainwave that is really active when you stand on top of the mountain and you just know that you're connected to something, that you are part, or that there is a God, and this spiritual feeling that comes across you. But to actually hold a theta brainwave is supposed to be very difficult, very hard, unless you're asleep or in deep hypnosis or in really a deep meditation. And we found a way to access that brainwave in about 30 seconds, which is significant in itself. Another brainwave that we use a lot is when we go into deep sleep. We use a delta brainwave. And this is a brainwave that is when the body is really at its highest repair energy. It's in that deep, deep sleep. If you were in a coma, you would be only in a delta brainwave. We found that when we do the technique that we actually hit a theta delta brainwave when people heal. And to be able to talk about what brainwave is working in a healing is significant. The other brainwave that we talk about a little bit in the book is a gamma brainwave, which is when your brain is moving really fast. And this is to help you solve problems and moves to when you need quick answers. And we believe that we're linking a kind of a theta gamma wave, but we can talk about that later. But those are the 5 different brainwaves.
Koliko sam shvatio, još do nedavno, prije samo nekoliko desetljeća, smatralo se da je Theta valove nemoguće postići osim u budnom stanju. Mada vidim da ima puno situacija kada su oni prisutni. Što se promijenilo u percepciji tih teta valova u zadnjih 20-30 godina?
Well, I think that we get really stuck in an idea. We think it's impossible to do something. They always thought it was impossible to actually have a theta brainwave unless you were in deep sleep. They believe that that's the dream wave. But over the years, they've been doing these different studies with different shamans and different, they'll go into these medicine men and they'll start to regulate their brain when they're in trance or when they're talking, but they're in a complete delta theta brainwave. In fact, a lot of them are in delta, which is absolutely, according to science, impossible. And I think that since the video games began, they realized that they may be triggering a different brainwave. And they found out that a lot of the video games that our children are playing are actually taking them into kind of a theta brainwave, which, if you think about it, the theta brainwave, when we use it, is connecting to God, working the subconscious. It's a deep and impressive brainwave. And to be training our children in video games that shoot people actually might be programming our children to do just that very same thing. So they're really investigating that more from that standard. But now they're beginning to measure healers' brainwaves and different people's brainwaves to see what's really happening.
Na koji način, u stvari, spominjali ste da možete na brz način uvesti ljude u teta valove i na kraju krajeva vaša se tehnika zove teta iscjeljivanje. Kako izgleda teta iscjeljivanje? Naravno da ne možemo zaviriti u sve ono što se osobi događa iznutra ili mnoge one nevidljive sfere postojanja, ali kad bi se nekom htjelo opisati što se tu stvari događa, na koji način vi uspostavljate tu komunikaciju ili koherenciju, kako bi to se opisalo?
Well, a theta brainwave is a deep meditation brainwave that actually opens up different parts of the brain. And I think just being able to measure that as far as the theta brainwave kind of gives us answers why healers are able to do some of the things that they do. So just being able to say, I think that we're accessing a theta brainwave to someone who's maybe intellectual, that's a way to get their attention. But I think when you experience a theta brainwave, you experience kind of this dream state. And then if you go deeper and you practice, you kind of, you actually have the experience of like you're dreaming. So when you're in the body, it's like a vision, and it's, we're using this brainwave to go into people's space and actually look for illness and sickness. And we're able to do that simply because we're opening up different parts of our brain, simply because we're finally like listening to our inner self. But to be able to do that is this amazing feeling that people get immediately in class. And, a long time ago, 20 years ago, hypnotists thought the real key behind suggestive thought to people in hypnosis would be to put the hypnotist and the person being hypnotized into hypnosis at the same time. Then they thought they could really do something. But we found a way to do that without having to use a deep hypnosis or something like that. We found a way to do that. So when we go into theta, say I go into a theta brainwave and I touch you, your brain goes into a theta brainwave too. And at that point, we can actually see changes in the body.
U kojoj mjeri su se iscjeljivanja teta valovima i uopće iscjeljivanja, ali u ovom slučaju pričamo o teta valovima, pokušavala mjeriti ili istražiti, s obzirom da je valove na neki način moguće je lako izmjeriti? To znači da prvi put možda imamo neku objektivnu potvrdu da se nešto doista događa, što je toliko godina uvijek nedostajalo u alternativnoj medicini. Na koji način ste, recimo, ako jeste, istraživali teta valove, s kojim uređajima, što se vidjelo i pokazalo?
Well, in the very beginning, when I first started doing this, theta healing kind of really began in the healing part after I had a spontaneous healing. And I wanted to see if it could be copied. And I knew when I had this spontaneous healing that was probably a theta wave, because at the time I was actually married to a hypnotist who did nothing but study theta brainwaves. And so according to him, he was always trying to meditate to reach this state, and we were reaching it really quickly. So I boldly said, I think that the reason my body healed was because of a theta brainwave. Well, immediately I ran into opposition. You know, one biofeedback analysis in my classroom was like, it's impossible, you can't do it. So we got an electroencephalograph and actually started measuring the brain waves. And we found that as soon as we took our students into this meditation, they were at that state. And every one of them went. And so we must have measured, we measured hundreds of people on our little electroencephalograph. And they were all going into theta brainwave. What was fascinating was that the person that they were working on was also going into theta brainwave. So that was kind of the beginning for us 20 years ago. But since then, the Japanese have done a lot of studies on alpha brainwaves. I believe that some of the other countries, I believe Russia is studying a lot about theta brainwaves. So now it's kind of more of a common study. You know, back 20 years ago, to get an electroencephalograph was thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And now you can get kind of cheap electroencephalographs a lot cheaper. So what we did recently in the last 2 years is we went and we bought a couple electroencephalographs that are just phenomenal. So not only do they measure the brainwaves, but they actually show us the brain and what's going on in the brain. So now at last we can actually see kind of what's happening in a healing on both the healer's brain and the person being healed. And that may not mean anything to someone who's, a healer, because we heal with our spirit. But in reality, it's telling us that something really is happening in a healing, that something can be measured and something's really going on, and that is kind of significant.
Koliko sam shvatio, Theta Healing se može koristiti tako da netko iscjeljuje drugu osobu, ali također je i nešto čime čovjek može sam sebi pomoći. Ili
right.
To?
And it's interesting.
Koja je razlika između tog dvoje?
Well, we use theta healing so that the person comes to someone who's a theta healer, they go in, they scan their body, they can see kind of what they need, what doctor they may need to go to, what's going on in their life. And so that alone is really valuable, especially to some of our Japanese doctors, so that they can help diagnose their clients. But also for the person theirself, they can actually look at their self and see what's going on, what may be happening. But theta healing goes much deeper than that. It goes to a really deep emotional level. And the only way to really do healing is to be able to heal yourself. You know, the ability to look at yourself and work on yourself on very deep levels is very important. I mean, one healer cannot see maybe 20 healers, a day. You yourself could heal your entire lifetime, by learning this skill, and you can actually help millions.
Vratit ćemo se malo kasnije na neke razine postojanja emocija ili zdravlja i pitanje podprograma, no prije tog se vratimo malo u prošlost. Spominjali ste muža koji se bavio hipnozom i da ste uz njega proučili Theta valovi i slično. Kako je u stvari počelo, kako vaša životna priča u stvari zvuči, kako ste došli uopće do tog da se bavite iscjeljivanjem uopće, a kamoli Theta iscjeljivanjem i koji su to bili neki ključni događaji koji su vas usmjerili u tom pravcu? Ne morate ispričati cijeli život. Samo neke manji dijelovi.
Really quick. I've been married 4 times. And sometimes the universe puts the right person into your life. And at one particular part, 20 years ago, I was married to a hypnotist. He was very logical. He was very practical. He wanted to find out why things worked, how they worked. And his methodology was that if he could get into a theta brainwave, he could manifest everything in his life and never work. And that's exactly what I got, someone that didn't work. And so obviously we had problems, and maybe the emotional problems caused a malignancy in my leg. And the doctors found out that I had a problem in my femur, and they told me I had cancer. And I went to alternative healing simply because in the United States you have to have insurance for medical help. And I tried all these different things to fix my leg, but in the end, what fixed my leg was the fact that I was using a technique to do readings. And the technique to do readings was actually helping me look through people's bodies, see their angels, see what their life was happening. I had no idea it would do healing. And when it did the healing, I realized that I had done something different. I had meditated, I had used subliminals, I had done hypnosis, I had done color therapy, cleanses, everything. And I did get to a degree better, but my body actually healed when I did this very simple technique that I used in readings. Now, that's what happened to me. What happened next was the fact that I'm curious. if I can heal, maybe somebody else can heal. And maybe it's not just me that had the gift. Maybe everyone had the gift. So I wanted to see if it could be copied. So I automatically started teaching it to classes that I was already teaching. I was already teaching people how to be psychic. So I just added that to my class. And it wasn't until that one person stood up and said it can't be done did we get a way of measuring it with an electroencephalograph to see if my theory was right. You know, after I healed my leg and a series of events, I did get divorced. It wasn't working. And I did end up marrying somebody that I dream about for 10 years. And I, quote unquote, began the healing modality. The other part that happened with the healing modality is that not everybody healed instantly. You know, some people would have these miraculous healings. Other people, when I would go in and do a healing, I would get that they believe they should be sick or that it was genetic. And all of these things that seemed difficult for me to work on. So at first I tried to do hypnosis on people to convince them that they could be well. But that's very long and taxing. And then we found out that the very same technique that we were using to make the body change could actually change the way people thought, with their permission, of course. We could actually change they had grown up with all their life, like I should be punished, I should be sick, or I'm no good, or all these little programs that we found in a core belief level. Now, the truth is that people have known about core beliefs for years. They've known that your subconscious regulates your beliefs, but we found something that was really cool. We found out how to go down and actually change what we call a genetic program, something you inherited. And that's when people really started shifting. Then we took it to another level, something that happened because of group consciousness, or maybe even a past life memory, which means, in my opinion, you may have past life memories from your genetics. You may have it because of the land you live on. You may have it for 1,000 million reasons, but they're there, and we found out how to shift those. Then people started getting well. Then we started using it to not just heal the body, but to heal the mind, and to heal relationships, and to bring abundance, and to use in business. And so Theta healing just took off that way.
U ovoj knjizi, Theta iscjeljivanje, dosta se piše o radu na vjerovanjima, o kojima ste sad pričali. Zanimljivo je uočiti za one koji se možda nisu bavili tom temom, koji dosta je oko nas jako dugo, da postoje nekakva temeljna vjerovanja koja nas određuju, da često puta ljudi nisu svjesni što vjeruju, odnosno čini im se da vjeruju nešto drugo. Recimo da ako bi se nekog pitali želiš li biti bogat, on će naravno reći da, želim. Međutim, posvjesno iz nekog razloga ne želi. Možda se boji da bi mu se rođaci doselili u kući ili nešto slično. Na koji način je danas, a to također nije usamljeno, na koji način danas se zapravo mogu testirati podsvjesna uvjerenja? Ima nekoliko načina na kojima naše tijelo odgovara iskreno i ono što je zapravo u podsvijesti skriveno, a koju vi od tih tehnika koristite i na koji način zapravo ljudi mogu i sami vidjeti što podsvjesno vjeruju, a što ne?
Well, eventually we train the practitioner that they won't have to use some of these primitive ways, but right now we use muscle testing. We don't use applied kinesiology because that's very intensive. We just use the basic muscle testing to see what the subconscious believes, because muscle testing will show you what your subconscious believes. And a lot of times people fail to realize how intelligent we really are and how smart our brain is. And before you say, I want to be rich, your brain has already thought of the circumstance that will happen if you're rich. What's going to happen next? Do I know how to do this? Do I know how to deal with the problems? And if it doesn't like the scenario, it'll shut down. And we found that a lot of people have not only programs on a subconscious level, but they have them on a genetic level. Say your parents believed that if they were rich, they would lose track of everything, or they're poor and proud of it, or rich people are evil or bad. And all of these little programs are in our DNA, and they affect us in our world. So a lot of people that are in spiritual healing, they've worked on what they say is beliefs. They get up, they say certain things over and over and over. I am great, I am wonderful, I can do this, I can do this. And they may be shifting some of their subconscious beliefs. They may be just covering them up a little bit. They may be just adding good beliefs to old beliefs. But they are not shifting it because they are not shifting it in their own memory of their own DNA. And in reality, we are energy. We are energy, and that's what we are as beings. We are made of pure energy. If you go into an atom, it's made of pure energy. So in reality, these energy levels are real. And so if this person may work his whole entire lifetime feeling like he's worthy, but his genetics say, but if you're rich, you will never get to God. You will never go to heaven. And if that's there, it can literally block them from moving forward. And so when we found that we could, in a theta brainwave, shift those beliefs, not on a core level, but on a genetic level, on another level that we call a history level, like oaths of poverty, funny things that have happened throughout the centuries, immediately their life changed. And not just a little bit, a lot. Enough that the Japanese are finding it quite fascinating and are actually starting to explore our theta healing technique.
Koji su to točno načini na kojima naša fiziologija govori istinu? Ljudi koji imaju iskustva u nekim spiritualnim disciplinama, s tim su se sretali često, međutim za ljude koji nemaju iskustva u spiritualnim disciplinama, to su zapravo dramatične i potpuno nove stvari, makar u stvari jednostavne. Na koji način saznajete koji su pravi podsvjesni programi, u što ljudi doista vjeruju negdje u dubini?
Well, muscle testing was started years ago by farmers, I think, or people that have used it for centuries to find out if their horses were girls or boys, because on a subconscious level you have reality of knowing things. So if you stand up and you drink enough water, this only works if you're hydrated, and you kind of align your electrical magnetic field like this. If you stand up and you say yes, your body will lean forward. If you say no, it'll lean backwards. If you say I'm a puppy dog, it will lean backwards. And that no is always backwards and forwards is always yes. And that basic way of asking a question, am I abundant? No. Is a way that you can start to find your beliefs. The brain itself works like a computer, so you can actually ask the brain questions like, why do you believe this? And the brain will actually give you a reason. So what we do is we actually muscle test the person to see if they believe certain things. Another form of muscle testing, and lots of people have seen it, is where you push up and down the arm. You can manipulate muscle testing, though, so you have to make sure that you're in a good space, the person you're working with is in a good space. Another way is having a person hold their fingers tight, and then if they pull apart easily, that's a no, and if they hold tight, that's a yes. But all of these only work if the person is completely hydrated. So you need to hydrate the person. You need to be able to ask a yes and no question. But even that alone will let people realize that they have a counter program that is against them. It's primitive. But as the practitioner learns theta healing, they'll be able to listen to key words. People say things over and over like, I'm so stupid, I can't believe I did that. I'm so dumb, I'm so stupid. Those are all programs that are going into the subconscious mind. They shouldn't actually say that. Or, I look ugly today, or I look fat. These are all beliefs that are coming out of people's mouths. We just need to learn to listen to them. But the real cool thing about muscle testing is when you change something on someone, they can see the change. Now, that's only changing beliefs. It means you have to change it to something more positive, but some people don't know what positive is. Some people have never actually experienced joy or experienced love or experienced certain things that maybe they should be able to know. So we use theta healing in a different way too. We actually go up and actually send into the cells and on every level what certain things mean. And just changing things to, what forgiveness means, what love means, can actually shift a person. What it feels like to be abundant, because they're afraid of success. People are more afraid of success than they are of failure. When you offer success, they go, but I don't really have my hopes up. I don't really expect anything out of this. It's, because they're afraid to move forward. And so we kind of shift that too. It's remarkable to see the change in disease when you start to shift beliefs.
Drugim riječima mogli bismo reći da ljudima nikad nije onako kako bi htjeli da im bude, a onda s druge strane niti ne znaju kako bi htjeli da im bude. Zbunjujuća situacija.
Right, it is a little, but it's still kind of interesting.
Kada se priča o tim nivoima vjerovanja, osnovni, društveni, genetski, povijesni i nivo duše i slično, možete ih malo raščlaniti? U kojoj mjeri, kako biste opisali te razine vjerovanja koje spominjete u knjizi, a to su osnovni, genetski, povijesni i nivo duše? Gdje su oni zapravo razlikuju, gdje su im granice?
Well, I started working on people, and when I started, first we got the genetic level. So we didn't get all these levels in the order that they are in the book. They're much more organized now. But we found that if we actually have like 4 different levels of belief. We believe things that we were told as children. We grow up. We've learned that our father says, "I love you," and then he hits us. So now we learn that love hurts. And so therefore, maybe people who say they love you are going to hurt you. And that alone makes you start to block the love in your life because it's dangerous. So that's a belief. But that's like on a core belief level. A genetic level is something that is actually taught to us by our ancestors, which is really remarkable right now because we were teaching this 20 years ago, and now it's like they finally realize that maybe your genetics do carry feelings and emotions and programs. So it's kind of nice that science is kind of backing us up a little bit on this, but we found that you're carrying it on what we call a genetic level, where you've got certain programs that were handed down gracefully and kindly to you for survival means from your ancestors. And a lot of that has to do with abundance, or, if you're too happy, something bad might happen. Little things that are kind of inside ourselves. We found that prejudice is actually carried in the DNA. That even meeting someone from another country, you may either like them or not like them immediately. And we know that knowledge is in our DNA because if you see a snake, you react to it, but you've never seen a snake before, but on some level you know it's dangerous. So, we know that it really interacts with us. The other level is what we call the history level, and this would be what people in metaphysics would call the past life level. Past life memories are in us simply because of our DNA or where we live, because everything that we touch leaves an imprint on it. So everything that we touch, we can actually get energy from. I can see who touched this glass last. On another level, we have that much information. It also could be that we have many lifetimes, but whatever it is definitely part of also group consciousness. So a history level belief would be that diabetes is incurable. So many people believe that now we have accepted that as fact. In reality, it's not fact, and we're very close to a medical cure soon. But instead, we believe it because everybody else believes it, that this is what they believe, or we believe that we should be killed for being a healer, or we should die for what we believe in. All of these different beliefs are just sort of floating on this history level. And then the last level is what we call the soul level, and that's when we really find the basis to the belief, where it began. You may believe that love hurts and therefore stay away from it, so you may have a belief that everyone who tries to love you is going to hurt you. But where did it begin? How did it start? And when you find the very bottom, you actually affect what we believe the entire soul. The whole body changes. And it's a belief of Theta healing that our souls are here to learn by experience. And as we shift these beliefs, we shift them on another entire level of our being. And that it changes our reality, that we create something different. Instead of creating poverty, we create abundance. Now there's a new lesson, there's something new. So that's how the 4 levels work. And even though people will discover later that there are probably other levels in those levels, those are the 4 major levels we keep beliefs in. And that's why Theta healing is so effective, because we hit every level. Some people have gone to past life regression and changed something in that time, or they've gone and they've done some definite beliefs and they've read their beliefs and they've done all this, but they're missing that huge genetic part. And so when you put it all together, you have a changed person, which is like kind of cool. You let them be who they really are.
Te stvari zapravo nisu toliko apstraktne koliko se mogu činiti. Prije 30 godina da ste spomenuli nekom ko se bavi medicinskim, da ko je liječnik, da emocije ili stres imaju veze sa zdravljem. 70. godina to baš nije bila popularna ideja. Međutim, kao što i spominjete u knjizi, kako su otkrivali da ti neuropeptidi nisu samo u mozgu, već da su posvuda u imunološkom sustavu i riječ o toj neurofarmakologinji Candy Spurt. Drugim riječima, ustanovilo se da misli doslovce imaju kanal da oblikuju cijeli naš imunološki sustav na jednoj kemijskoj i biološkoj razini i u tom trenutku su emocije nekako ušle na polje i počeli su ljudi shvaćati da emocije i stres imaju s tim veze. No još uvijek je zanimljivo da je sad s druge strane pomalo teško prihvatiti da nekakva grupna svijest ili kolektivna može toliko utjecati na ljude, ali tu također postoji zanimljiva indicija ili istraživanja, konkretno mislim da je riječ o antropologu koji je proučavao koliko pojedina kultura u stvari omogućava iscjeljivanje ili ne. O čemu se tu radilo? Kakvi su tu bili rezultati? To je bilo jedno grupno, temeljno vjerovanje koje može činiti dobro ili lošije ljudima u toj zajednici.
I think that, well, first of all, in quantum physics, these ideas about being interconnected in one energy is definitely in quantum physics. So in metaphysics and quantum physics, they kind of come together there. And everybody knows that, you know, a quantum physicist is a little bit because he believes everything is energy and everything is connected. And so we believe that. And so we believe that they're going to actually prove our theories. One of the people that actually took a real interest in theta healing was an anthropologist who believed that the way people were raised and the culture that they were in, how did they affect a healing? Because some cultures heal really fast, and other cultures don't heal as fast with the same applied healing modality. And what we found is that cultures that believed in healing, that believed deeply in a spiritual energy, would heal very quickly. So like in New Zealand, we do a healing on somebody, they don't say, why does this work? How does this work? They're just like, heal me. And next thing you know, they're better. You know, I watched a man heal in New Zealand. He had cancer all over his body. I thought he was going to die in my classroom. I was hoping that God would just let him go home and he could die happily there because it was so everywhere. But the little gal that worked on him was a little Maori woman from New Zealand. She believed in healing. She did a healing on him. He healed completely. His son came and learned theta healing. It was remarkable. And so this anthropologist kind of believed that it's how they're conditioned, how they're trained. It has something to do with the village, the culture, and what's going on there. You know, I found that people in Italy that were really had strong Catholic roots, and maybe they weren't Catholic now, but their ancestors were. They had that belief that Christ could heal, and they would heal. Yet other cultures wanted to know why it worked, how it worked. Say, for instance, some of the people in England. You know, they have very deep, spiritual, magical roots. They have very magical roots, but they have a real analytical brain. So if you sit down and said, this is the levels, this is the brainwave, this is what's going to happen, then they would consent, and then they would allow their body to heal. But they wanted to understand why. So the anthropologist was trying to figure out, and this is also a curiosity of me, which culture heals faster? What in your DNA says you can heal, and in this person it says it has to be difficult? And that is a whole new field to explore. I mean, it's going to be interesting to find out, you know, how our ancestors are affecting our healing.
Ili kako kolektivni djeluje na to, s obzirom da su poznati slučajevi kada su liječnici 70. godina došli na Filipine u potrazi za takozvanim psihokinetičkim kirurzima koji su izvodili čuda, rezove, psihokinetičke vate ulazila kroz kožu i van. I onda su neki od njih poveli u Njemačku da bi se dogodilo da su ubrzo rezovi postali nekontrolirani, pogađali su samog iscjelitelja na čudnim mjestima. Dok se nije sam razbolio i morao se vratiti natrag, na neki način njegova čarolija, da je tako nazovemo, nije radila u Njemačkoj. Vjerojatno danas bi se mogli nagađati zbog nedostatka uvjerenja u cijeloj zajednici možda da to djeluje. Također u knjizi spominjete traganje za temeljnim vjerovanjem. Što bi to bilo temeljno vjerovanje?
Well, the basic belief would be what we call the core belief level. So we have basic beliefs that we get when we're up to like we're 4 or 5 years old. It kind of gives us a structure of how we really believe about ourselves. So if your father says you'll never do any good, you've kind of got that little belief inside there. Now, you may have taken that because you believe your father. But in reality, it's a basic belief. But we also have beliefs that are in our body that are there for our body. We have like our immune system beliefs that actually keep us alive. So there are beliefs that we can change and beliefs that we cannot change. Like, I can't make you a boy. That's a tiny little boy. I can make you're a man. I can't make you a puppy. I can't make you a girl. These are structural beliefs that are actually there. However, I can work on your beliefs about abundance, or about love, or about letting someone love you, or about bringing up the joy of being a child and still being a man and still having the excitement of learning. All of those we can change on a basic belief level, and it's really incredible. I think the real interesting part about Theta healing is we don't change people's belief systems, though. I mean, if you believe a certain religion, you can do this no matter what. So we are actually using what's already there, the faith that's already in that person, which is on a basic level, but also on a genetic level, and even on a history level around you. And like you said before, if you are in a room full of people that are believers, that definitely brings that energy in more than when you're in a room with non-believers. The interesting thing about Theta healing is it has a tendency to work even on people who do not believe. All they have to want is to be well. So on some level, they've had believers in their past, but I've worked on so many people that simply just did not believe in healers or God or anything. But they believed their neighbor. And their neighbor got healed, so they come into me and they say, well, you healed my neighbor, so let's see. So even that level of belief, because it worked on the neighbor, can bring in belief, enough belief for change.
Ali tu također postoje zamke, postoje ljudi koji bi se naizgled svjesno htjeli iscijeliti jer su bolesni, ali negdje posvjesno zapravo možda i ne bi jer im odgovara pažnja koju dobivaju u svojoj bolesničkoj ulozi i slično. Tako da je zapravo pravo pitanje želi li se svi doista iscijeliti, a možda postoje ljudi koji su se već umorili od života, pa u tom slučaju, hoću reći, tu se nalazimo na skliskom terenu, koliko zapravo ljudi i kad zaista se žele iscijeliti. Kakva su vaše iskustva po tom pitanju?
Well, in Theta healing, we always thought it was like a negative belief that they wanted to be sick, that they didn't feel worthy. But as we started working, we realized that the brain and people are so smart. Most of the people that we found that were actually really healers, they weren't sick because they wanted to be sick or that they were getting attention. They were sick to put their family back together. I mean, I can't tell you how many people had breast cancer and now their family came back together, their children, their family. So this good thing was actually making up for the bad thing. And when they had that belief that the only way to pull the family together and to teach them love is for me to be sick, then they very rarely would allow themselves to get well. Only after we taught them on a subconscious level that their family could still stay together and they could be well did they actually change their sickness. So we found that just as well negative feelings, a lot of positive feelings could actually make people get well. So for instance, on the few people that we worked on with HIV, they always seemed to have a belief that if I got completely well, I would go back to my old ways. Or this disease has made it so that my family now takes me back and loves me. I mean, whatever it is in the bottom, they really hang on to it. And so as we started studying disease, we started finding that viruses actually had their own belief systems. And each one was different, but they were similar. So the same belief systems with someone who had herpes would be with this next person who had herpes. The same belief system with someone who had HIV would have the same belief system. So then we started mapping it out that maybe we're drawing disease to us because of certain beliefs that maybe we have in common. And believe it or not, a virus is like a living entity. And maybe the virus is coming to our body the same way as we pick our husbands or our wives, not only because of the good beliefs we have, but for the negative beliefs we have too, so that we can grow. So as we started working on viruses, we found that they had a pattern and we could map it out. And that was when we started really realizing how intelligent everything is around us and that our spirits, our souls, they're incredible. We are not only creating our reality, but we're creating anything that would help us in our reality to achieve what we want.
U kojoj mjeri je danas Theta iscjeljivanje prisutno u svijetu? u proteklih 10-15 godina, često sam čuo za taj pojam, mnogi se njime bave, čini mi se da se poprilično proširilo od onih vremena kada ste tek smišljali ime, tamo negdje, ne znam, to je bilo u Idahu ili Juti. Kako je išao taj proces, da kažemo tako, širenja Theta healinga, s obzirom da, eto, vi ste s tim krenuli pred 20-30 godina, danas mnogi ljudi se time bave da zapravo ni ne znaju od kuda je stiglo.
Well, in the beginning, we couldn't figure out what... I called it Theta healing in the beginning, then I changed the name for a while, then we called it Theta healing again. But what happened was that my people I was working on, they wanted to learn how to do it. And then word of mouth started to spread, and before you know it, I was teaching people all over the world because they invited me to come. So I've never been on a lecture circuit, so to speak. I've just gone and taught the people that wanted to learn. And now Theta healing is like all over the world. I get to work with people from every country, amazing healers that actually have applied Theta healing in their life and have come to become Theta healing instructors. And of course, when we started teaching people, they wanted to teach others. So we created an instructor's course. Then they wanted more, so we created an advanced course. Then they wanted more, then we created an intuitive anatomy course. Because they all wanted to be trained on what disease looked like or how to become abundant. So we created classes based on their needs. What they asked, I gave them. So we have like a class just to how to work on disease, because you can't be a healer and work on a disease that you're afraid of, because fear stops the whole process. Then we started working on world relations, how people found that they were prejudiced and they go teach in a place that got treated badly. So we started clearing that. Then we found that it could be used in business, so we started coaching that. So right now we have probably about 3,000 or 4,000 working instructors, and we believe at the moment we have about 250,000 practitioners, but that number changes all the time. This is all that we can keep track of. Each country is moving so quickly and they're learning so fast. And it's because it can be learned, it can be taught, and it can be measured.
Koliko sam shvatio, sam proces Theta healinga, odnosno stvaranja Theta valovi u glavi, nije zapravo nešto jako komplicirano. Međutim, postoje mnogobrojni trikovi na koje čovjek može naići u komunikaciji s ljudima. Sve ova uvjerenja, potom situacije koje su se događale da mnogi iscijeljitelji se na neki način čak i razbole od tolikih komunikacija i susreta s bolesnim ljudima. Znači ima tu puno nekih stramputica koje bi trebalo izbjeći. Primjerice, što se može reći za te iscijeljitelje koji se na neki način baš ne čuvaju dobro pa sami podlegnu nakon dugo godina rada sa bolesnim ljudima nekoj bolesti?
Well, I believe, that was a good question. I believe that we have a natural ability to heal people that we've inherited genetically. So I think that a lot of people have got shamans or other healers in their DNA, and the old way to heal was to take the sickness and go out and put it in the earth. And so what we do is we train healers that they don't have to do that they can send all the energy right to the Creator. But just because I program you not to do that doesn't mean you won't. Because as soon as I bring in a sick child, this healer would gratefully take the illness from the sick child because they have empathy, they have compassion, so they would take it into their own body. So what we do is we actually train our teachers that if they do take on the sickness of a client, that they know how to convert it instantly to the light. And that stops them from getting sick almost immediately. And we realize that what's taken them thousands of years to learn should not just be thrown away, but should learn it. The process of converting it instantly is amazing. And that way they don't have the fear that I'm going to catch this if I work on this. Because obviously you can notice that sometimes people work on an illness so long that they actually die of that illness. So our methodology is to take what's there, but to kind of perfect it and go on.
Na koji način čovjek uopće može sam svoj mozak dovesti ovako u budnom stanju u stanje da titra na razini Theta valova?
Well, I wish that it was like more complicated so that it would be like, really super, super cool, fascinating. But really what we found was so simple that I can see why we missed it for so many years. We found that if you visualize going in your body and going up through your body, having light come up through your body and make a beautiful ball of light. It can be any kind of light. And imagine that you're in it. That would put your brain in an alpha brainwave. And then the simple use of God, creator, or however you identify God, would put your brain in a theta brainwave. But then I had to mess with all these people's belief system that they had to be punished. So I started taking them on a journey where they could actually start to reach the highest truth, the highest energy. And I really believe that we started taking them to where the actual energy of an atom comes to be. Even though they're visualizing going up to this energy of light, higher and higher and higher until they're in this space, I believe that we are connecting on an atomic level. But even then, when you say the word God, you still go into a theta brainwave. So apparently you can connect to a theta brainwave as soon as you're actually out of your own space, out of your body. Now, we've taken people that we had them sit down and meditate, we've had them sit down and pray, and they didn't ever go to a theta brainwave, but as soon as they imagined going up, saying the word God, they did. So I think that some of those ancient manuscripts or books that actually said, go up and seek God, I think people crawled up mountains instead of going up and finding God.
Ovo su sve bila mjerenja sa tim elektroencefalogramima. Kojom brzinom se zapravo to događa? Što pokazuje uređaj kada čovjek počne zamišljati tu kuglu svjetla iznad glave? To se događa trenutno za 5 minuta, 3, 10, kada se mjeri prema uređajima.
It's instantaneously, and a lot of the old instruments, which were not as complicated as now, but immediately they would go to an alpha brainwave as soon as they imagined. What we thought was immediately is probably long spans of time in the universe, but immediately they'd go to alpha, and immediately, as soon as they said the word God, and they usually had to use the word that they learned as a child, so it should be God, Jesus, Heavenly Father, Allah, whatever they grew up with would actually take them to that theta brainwave. A lot of people realize that they're part of an energy, a creation energy. When they said the word creator, they would go there. The Native Americans would say the spirit that moves in all things, but it would still take them to that theta brainwave.
Vianna, hvala vam. Do neke sljedeće prilike. Želimo sreću ako još uopće ima neki prazni prostor za theta healing gdje se još nije uvukao.
Cool.
Do neke sljedeće prilike. A mi ćemo ostati još neko vrijeme ovdje sa mješavinom vlastitih valova u mozgu i spletom misaonih obrazaca i podsvjesnih programa, bar dok se ne zapitamo može li bolje. A opet, tko bolje može znati odgovor na to pitanje od osobe same. A jednom kad se postave prava pitanja na odgovore ne treba dugo čekati. Laku noć.